Welcome to episode 10 of Let the Ancestors Speak. Today we're on our upper porch. It felt like a good place to be today, given all the things that are in the world. It felt like it was good to be someplace that was up, someplace that would allow our spirits to ascend. Let me give you a little history of Hardiman House. This house was built in 1910, and according to the records at the Tacoma Public Library Northwest History Room Archive, it sold for $11,000. I love the location of this house. On one side is the Salvation Army with the food bank and the emergency shelter. That's what I see when I look out the back window. On the other side is the North End, with houses starting about $750,000 to $1 million. And we are right in the middle. And so therefore, each day I wake up and I can say, there for the grace of God go I. Hardiman House has sustained our family since we bought it in 1991. So when I had my birthday last year, we decided to throw a celebration for the house, and it was marvelous. We asked everyone to bring a dish that someone, an ancestors, had taught them, so that we could evoke the memory of the ancestors and all those people who had helped them make a house a home. And so everyone brought food, and we shared, and the house was happy, and the ancestors were pleased. My mom used to come out here and sit on this porch when she was still alive, and she would read from a book called The Upper Room, which was a daily devotional that kind of gave practical guidance for living one's life. Now that she's gone, I kind of have followed in her tradition, and I come out here in the morning and I have a cup of coffee and I meditate and I think and I try to gain some understanding of what's going on. Sometimes we get caught in understanding and everything comes down and oppresses us. But overstanding, as Bob Marley said, because it's his phrase, basically gives us a different kind of perspective on the world. And one day when I was overstanding out here, I realized something. And that is my mother had totally prepared me for the COVID-19 pandemic. As I sat on this porch, I realized that when I was growing up, my mother never really liked me to leave the yard. And I grew up riding my bicycle to one end of the yard, riding my bicycle back to the other end of the yard. Basically, she spatially distanced me from all things that she thought would be harmful. I realized that sitting on this porch as I was just kind of thinking that my mother really probably had undiagnosed post-traumatic stress because her father had gotten murdered when she was 12 by a burglar who came in the night. And as a result, she had an excessive fear about being alone at night and about the people that she loved being away from her. So that she couldn't protect them if they weren't there, or they couldn't protect her if she wasn't there. So subsequently, I grew up going from my front door to the edge of the driveway, back and forth, spatially distant. But my mother was smart because she understood about the impact of spatial distancing, so she always made sure I was socially connected. All the parties were at our house. Every Friday night, people came over. So I learned social skills, but I was always spatially distanced. And so when I was sitting here and thinking about that, I was thinking about all the skills that people have put in us, that have prepared us for these moments that we have right now, at this time, in this place. Another thing that I have been reflecting upon as I sit in this upper room, this upper porch, is I reflect on what is happening in the world. I mean, what is happening with the pandemic? What is happening with the rampant police violence against Black people? About what is happening in terms of the economy? What is happening in terms of the kids that are not going to school and not being stimulated? And so I ponder that, and as I sit here on my porch, and I go to what I have always gone to when I have questions, which is books, research. Because I totally believe that our ancestors have lived through times like this, and that they have left us answers and strategies by which we can journey through the night into day. Two of the books that I've been reading now during these highly troubled times are Woman Warriors of the African Diaspora and Sheroes of the Haitian Revolution. I read these books to look for answers, to look for ancient wisdom that can help in contemporary times. And so when I'm looking at the women warriors of the African diaspora, and I'm trying, I am able to pull lessons about how one wins a war, because we are at war. That one wins a war by acting on the initiative and not being reactionary. I mean, these are the lessons that Hannibal had to teach us about how to maintain the notion of surprise. And how important logistics and political intelligence were, and how important it was to mobilize the people around a common cause. And doing those things, he was able to cross the Alps and inflict a great conquest on the world. In the Haitian Revolution one, written by an amazing woman named Professor Bellows, I read about all of these different women in the Haitian Revolution that in fact took action in situations that were similar to ours, like Félicité, Mary Claude Heureuse Félicité Bonheur. I'm probably pronouncing that terribly wrong, but I did my best. Who was the wife of Jean-Claude Dessalines, who was a woman who was a educator, a natural healer, a war nurse, a constitutionalist, an author, an adopted mother to dozens of children, and eventually the first empress of Haiti, Haïti, the Empire of Freedom. And I look at her and I read about her, and she becomes a model, for me. She becomes a model because she understood not only did you have to go to war, but that you had to heal, and not only did you have to heal, but you had to feed. And so in January, she got the whole country to start a national ritual of making independent soup. And this independent soup was made so that they could celebrate their freedom in solidarity without hunger. And so when I look at these images, I become inspired. After I do some reading, I do a little self-work. During my travels to ancient Kemet, I bought this tapestry, and this is a tapestry of the final judgment. And the final judgment says that when we make our transition, our hearts will be weighed against the weight of a feather to see how we led our life. And did we lead a life with good character? Did we lead a life with good intention? So in honor of that indigenous tradition, every morning I take out this piece of paper and I say, I acknowledge my daily intention to correct, and balance, and fight against wrongdoing, to do good and to strive to bring good into the world, to strive to have a good character and be a model for others. I have to remind myself that if I'm going to, in fact, engage in any kind of corrective action, my own self has to be correct. My own self has to be whole. My own self has to be complete. So in the morning, I try to acknowledge that as an intention, to acknowledge that as a goal. In conclusion, what the ancestors want me to tell you today is that it doesn't make any difference whether or not you protest, whether you volunteer, whether or not you give money to support organizations, whether you reach out to a neighbor, whether you vote, whether or not you support criminal justice reform and voting rights. But the main thing you need to do is support your community. We need to support our internal people, our artists, our frontline workers, our people, our nonprofits, the people who are doing it. We have to turn this into an opportunity. We have a marvelous chance to turn this into an activity, to reinvest in our communities, to start eating in different kinds of ways, to start looking at each other in different kinds of ways, to in fact be the change we talk about. And so I say to the ancestors, thank you for showing us the way. Thank you for letting us know there is always a way out of no way. Thank you for letting us know that we can endure, that we can persevere, that we will achieve justice in the world one more time, one more time, one more time. Remember, like, subscribe, and share. Keep your